So, first of all, a little update on what's been going on. We are now into March. Um, February saw two deaths in the general family, followed, of course, with two funerals and all the other things that apply into that. So, most of February was taken up with family related issues. Again, since I do not do this for sponsorships and money, I do it when I can, and I do apologize for those of you who are wanting more content sooner. It's just in some cases, it's just not going to happen, folks. Secondly, uh, in March, my wife had several micro strokes. And as you see from the picture here, they had to cut along her carotid artery and redo the internal carotid artery and then add a piece of cow heart, specially treated cow heart, so that it would not be rejected, sew that into the carotid artery, and then stitch her back up. She was in the hospital for over 10 days. She was in surgery for over 4 hours, in and out of the intensive care, the cardio ward, and to tell you, just to be honest, um, when I initially found her on the hallway floor, unable to use her right arm and leg, at that point, anything relating to my gaming or anything else simply went out the friggin' window. I'm I'm being totally selfish at that point. I was more concerned about her than getting out any media content. All right. She is now home. She has some issues with her hand still. They said with therapy that should improve. And as such, why I'm now able to, with my stress levels much lower, I was only getting about 2 to 3 hours of sleep a night. And let's just say I was not in any condition physically, mentally, nor emotionally to do any kind of videos. So that brings you up to date on what's going on and why nothing has popped out recently. I really hope to change that as we're getting into the summer. I have a lot of things on the table planned. It's just getting to them. So let's move on and get into distillation and why to distill and why not to distill, or the reasons, the positives and negatives of it. All right. So let's move along. This little mini series is going to cover some aspects of distillation. And I'm not talking about just distillation of alcohols, as what most people think. I'm talking overall distillation, especially concerning water conservation and um, what would the term be? Uh, an overall use, if you will, where distillation may come in useful. Now, I've spoken to a couple of doctors and so on, and they told me that if you are told to boil your water before drinking, that they typically would boil the water, and then, if you wanted to remove the particulates and so on, would then distill it. This is basically to ensure as much as possible that you've killed any bacteria or impurities that are in the water. Okay, bacteria, molds, mildews, whatever happens to be causing the point where they're saying, boil your water before drinking it. I understand that principle, And if I was using it for drinking water, under my current 12-liter system, I could effectively do that and not really have much of an issue. I still personally believe that even if I was just to boil water for drinking, I would still distill it because it does so much more. It also has certain drawbacks. Distilled water typically does not have minerals and so on that would be found in the water to begin with. However, in many cases, when you're told to boil your local city water before drinking, it's because it's become contaminated, and this is typically because of human and animal feces and or dead animals, decayed material, whatever, has gotten into the supply, causing a bacterial or virus growth, to the best of my knowledge. I'm not a doctor, okay? And to me, if I boil the water then drink it, I'm still drinking all of those particulates. If I boil the water, then I distill it. By distilling it, I am removing a lot of those particulates at the cost of also removing the minerals that are in the water. However, unless you really require those minerals in your water based on your diet, okay, even on a short-term use, it, in my opinion, should not be a big issue. Everything that I've read on it says it is not a big issue. It can cause, I believe it was kidney damage or something, if you drank distilled water on a continual basis and did not have proper mineral supplements through your diet that the body needs, okay? The original concept of us drinking water was it came from natural springs. It would collect the minerals and stuff, flow down. The fish would poop in it. Animals would have sex in it, whatever. But because the water's flowing and moving, it's continuously being replaced. So the water would be typically safe to drink. Your dilemma comes when you have water that is being held, water in ponds, water in containment systems like industrial city water systems, okay? Because of the way that it's being held and so on, it runs a higher chance of not only becoming infected with nasty particulates, but it has nowhere to flow and clean itself if it does, so then those bacteria and so on just keep multiplying. So when we're dealing with distillation, when I'm dealing with my drinking water, I want to make it very straightforward. Distilling is better than boiling. However, on the safe side, I would bring my water to a boil it for the amount of time, then put it in and distill it. Now I've boiled it, I've ensured that I've killed anything that I'm capable of for that duration, and now I'm separating the particulates. Just so you understand. Let's have a look at this situation. Distilling water is generally considered a more effective method of purification than boiling. as it removes a wider range of impurities, including minerals, some chemicals, and it will boil, while boiling primarily kills only the microorganisms. Remember, you're bringing this water up to a boil, and then you're capturing the vapor, recondensing the vapor to get your distilled water. Plain and simple. Distillation is a more advanced purification system or method that removes a wider range of impurities, including minerals, heavy metals, some chemicals, and resulting, and I would say in general, a purer form of water. Okay? Boiling water basically effectively kills most harmful bacteria and viruses, making it safe to drink in areas with contaminated water. Again, this is why I generally would boil the water, so I've killed everything. So I've made sure I've had my boiling time, which is something like boil it for 3 to 5 minutes or whatever. Let's have a look here. Yeah, at least 1 and 3 minutes, depending upon the elevation. So, as the water is boiling, I would bring it to a boil at least for 2 minutes due to my elevation. Then I would put my distillation cap on it and then begin my distillation process. Okay? And as you see on my 12-liter system that I built later in the videos, how that is fairly simple. I put the water in, I bring it, I boil it for 2 minutes, I put the containment system on the top, and boom, I'm distilling water. So I've ensured I've killed the majority of viruses and bacteria while still also removing any chemicals, human feces, animal feces, rotting material components or anything, heavier materials such as caulk or whatever is getting removed at the cost of removing those minerals. However, we have a fairly forward dietary here at the house, so I'm not too much worried about that. Okay? So, I could put it in, bring the water to a boil after 1 minute, throw the cap on it, boom, and we're off and running as well. I would do it for about 2 minutes just to be safe. All right. We've covered the process, we've covered the benefits, we've covered the drawbacks. All right, so boiling is you're heating the water to its boiling point, which is 100 Celsius. You'll have to check up what it is on Fahrenheit. While distillation is heating water to a vapor, then condensing it. Boiling primarily kills the microorganisms, while distillation removes the minerals, chemicals, heavy metals, and even some of the physical larger microorganisms. Typically, boiling water, of course, is less pure than distilled water. Distilled water is more pure than boiled water. All right, the boiled water, of course, has everything still in there. It's going to retain taste and smells of the impurities. Usually you get a natural taste and no smell out of regular distilled water. But I can tell you, later in the video, when we distill the vinegar, when I reduce the vinegar and save that water is still going to have a taste to it. Okay, it's a thing we call, in brewing, they call it flavoids. It's still got some of those very, very fine materials in there that carries that acid vinegar flavor. Granted, you could drink it and it wouldn't be any worse than drinking vinegar, within consideration, of course. You know, we mix vinegar and honey for sore throats and so on, but maybe only a cup at a time. So I would not suggest drinking the recovered vinegar water. However, it is very useful for using in the garden. I could put it into my toilet to help cut down on the water use in the toilet, any number of things. The point being that I only reduce my vinegar every so many months. I'm not really getting a lot of water use out of that. But why just throw the water away when I can use it, take it out, throw it in my garden or whatever? Okay? Boiled water retains the minerals and heavier particles. Distillation removes a lot of those minerals and most heavy particles. That's distillation in a nutshell on the pros and cons. So, let's get into why distillation is bad under a water conservative concept. The improvements that have been done to correct that issue over time. I will show you my DIY 12-liter system that I used from refurbishing a old Vinegar distiller, and hopefully this will give you an idea of distillation, how to use some of this newer equipment and so on for home use, and maybe, just give you some ideas to work with. Again, all of this is for entertainment purposes only. So it's up to you to do further research. It's up to you to consider what is best and not best for you, your family members, your household, whatever. This is just how I do it, and thought it would be found an item of interest to whomever is watching it. So, let's move on into the initial and get going on this.